Did you encounter the same issue as I had, where you simply can't use the reverse thrust on your nice WinSim or WinCTRL device? Well, you found the right video, because I'm going to explain you how I fixed the issue. Could be that you are experiencing a different issue, but this is how I resolved it. So let's get started. What's super important is that you first calibrate the device before starting Flight Simulator, else you might hit some issues. So what I did is, if I go to the WinCTRL URSA MINOR 32 throttle, metal one, you can see a lot of nice things, right? This allows you to test your device, I would say, offline. But there's one important thing which you need to understand. Based on my experience, the default setting is the double stroke, double shaft. But that one is causing a lot of issues. So before starting Flight Simulator, make sure that you set it to single stroke, double shaft. That worked for me perfectly while using these nice throttles. But there's one more step which you need to do, and that's hitting that calibration button. The calibration button allows you to calibrate the multiple sliders from the joystick, right? That's from the say axis slider, right, which is the brake, the speed brake. We've got the flaps, and then both the throttles, the left one and the right one. Make sure that you do these calibrations before you start Flight Simulator. Then below that you see the calibration records. Then you might think, hey, I already calibrated this stuff, right? Why should I calibrate it again? Well, this is, once the game runs, you can use the calibration also here. That creates multiple records per device, as you can see. And it automatically stores those say configurations once you've enabled them in Flight Simulator. So enabled simply means, hey, I can use it. And once you activate the aircraft, for example, using the Fenix, it says, hey, this one becomes the active one. You can still disable it, you can delete it, but watch out, once you delete it, you need to recreate it from scratch. So let's start Flight Simulator, because I'm not going to explain this part, because it's simply hitting begin calibration and then doing the multiple steps. Really easy, simply follow the instructions, and then once you're done, simply start Flight Simulator. So we're in the cockpit of the Asobo / Inibuilds A320, and I'm going to show you how to configure this. For those who want to see how I do it for the Fenix, skip to the Fenix chapter, because I also show you how to do that one. But before diving into that, let me first show you the controls which I configured, because that's pretty interesting. If you go to settings, you can go to controls. Inside the controls menu, you will find the throttle. The throttle has a nice option, because I would say it has a lot of options. But to show you what I have configured, I will only show you the assigned ones, because these are the things which I did assign. You see also that I disconnected the URSA minor joystick which I have, and the reason for that is that I observed some weird issues with the throttle if you assign it, and in combination with this nice URSA minor throttle pack. So tip for me, initial tip, make sure that you don't assign the throttle to any other URSA device or WinCTRL device, because it might, I would say, result in some weird things. So these are the options which I configured, right? All the options, all the sliders, as you can see. But I would say I'm not going to go to all of them, because I have a present for you. I exported this configuration, and you can find the download link to the configurations, so you can download it and import it into your own Flight Simulator. Easy way to do that, because you click the gear and then you say import, and you can import it in Flight Simulator. I've created two profiles, the general controls and the airplanes, but as you can see, only airplane controls are there. There are no general controls, so I don't think it's even needed. For the throttle, I'm using the 0 to 100%. There are some discussions on the internet which say, hey, you need to assign the throttle 1 axis without those percentages. But for me, this works perfect. This doesn't cause any issues. It works nice. So I would say I leave it up to you. You also see some weird things, right? Some of these buttons have been assigned sometimes 2 or maybe even 3 times. That's for a reason, because what I figured out is that that works in most cases the best, because sometimes the joystick has some weird things. I followed for most of them the Fenix manual, except for the flaps, because the flaps are working a little bit different as far as I figured out. So I assigned hard buttons to them to make sure that they're working. That might also result in some other issues, but this works. you can see that I also assigned the flaps axis. So assigned both the buttons as well as the axis to the flaps, as well as for the spoiler. Now, how do you figure out which buttons these are? Well, there's a relatively easy method to do that. If you go to SimApp Pro, you can go to the test page, and in the test page you see all these nice buttons. And these nice buttons, let me describe, okay, hey, this button number 3, that refers to button number 3 in Flight Simulator. Button number 37 refers to button number 37 in Flight Simulator. Keep in mind that for some of these items there is also an axis assigned, like the RI and the RX, and in some cases it's not described very well, to be honest, so sometimes it requires you to do some testing. Make sure that the single stroke double shaft is set before you start Flight Simulator, because these changes, if you change it, it will not be directly reflected in Flight Simulator. What's the difference between this one and this one? Let me show you quickly, because this is really important. Currently, you can see that this line is at, I would say, a value. If you would set it to double stroke, double shaft, if it would be on the idle position where it currently is, this value will drop to 0. If you now go into reverse mode, it will go to 0. But if you would select the double stroke, double shaft method, it will go to 100%, which results in, it will go in touch and go. So make sure that you set it up correctly. And as you can see, here's the message about the single stroke. It describes how it works, right? And that's applicable to Flight Simulator in this case. So let's jump back to Flight Simulator and let's go back to the simulation itself. Here we go, because how can we kind of calibrate this nice thing? Well, there are two things which you need to do. First of all, you need to go to the options to go into the screen. So let me show it quickly. You go to options. I need to close this one. Go to options again, go to open throttle settings, and here you can say, hey, I've got my reverse on the axis. You can reset the calibration. I will do that. And then you simply move the joystick into these positions, like a max rev, you press the button, then you move it to idle rev, you press the button, then you move it to the idle and press the button, then you move it to, well, climb, you press the button, you move it to FLX MCT, and then finally you press it to set to go. And finally you set it to take off and go around, and then you should be fine. Once you've done that, you can click close and it will return to this window, and then you can play around with the throttle. However, there's one additional thing which I definitely would recommend you to do, and that's in SimApp Pro. In SimApp Pro, I already showed you these options and I didn't explain them yet. What you can do is you can create records for these also. I'm not 100% sure and entirely it's not clear to me why you can do this, but I did it because I found some tips on the internet why you should do it. I'm not sure if they're applicable. So what you do is simply hit the start calibration, and that will walk you to what you need to do. So you set it to max rev, then rev idle, then idle, climb, FLX, MCT, and take off and go around. And then what you need to do is simply do it like this. So first of all, I'm gonna move it to that first position. Then you go to Flight Simulator and make sure that it's in the correct position, which is the case. Once you've done that, you press next, move to the next position, and you again check, is it correct? That's the case. Okay, press next. Then you move it to idle, check it in Flight Simulator, it's correct, press next. Then to the climb mode, check Flight Simulator, also good. Next one, FLX MCT, also good. And then of course the final one, touch and go, or take off and go around. I could easily say touch and go, but it is take off and go around. Press next and then finish. Once you've done that, you will see that there is an additional profile, and we'll create a profile for every aircraft. It will all say enabled, but once it's in use, such as in this case, it will show me, hey, it's effective. And the reason why it knows it, if you hit start calibration, I'm not going to do it completely, but you see here the game as well as the machine model. You can do the same things for the calibration of the speed brake as well as for the flaps. I would definitely recommend you to do it. What will result in simply an entry simply an entry here per aircraft. So now we've done this one, let's look at the Fenix. So I'm gonna load the Fenix aircraft and then we will continue this video. So we're in the Fenix and the Fenix is just getting started. Also for this one, it's, I would say, kind of easy to do, but it's a little bit different. There's one recommendation which I have for you is that depending on the state the aircraft is starting in, make sure that you, let's say, either switch off the engines or do something else. You can do that if you go to the Fenix, you can go to the panel states, and then you can, for example, set it to turn around with APU state. That at least switches off the engines and that prevents some weird issues. The nice thing is that you can use the same profile as I already showed you for the A320 from Asobo and Inibuilds, but let me show you once more. I go to the settings, if you skip that part, and then go to the controls, and that's where I configured this nice setup, which works also for this aircraft. You can see all the buttons are here, and for those who skipped the default one, right, the Inibuilds, I have a tip for you. If you want to know which buttons are being assigned, you can also look at these numbers over here, because these numbers are reflected, I would say, in Flight Simulator, right? So number 23 simply refers to the button over here. Besides that, you can see the description over here, the single stroke, right? Why you need to set it to the single stroke. Once you've done that, you can go inside the aircraft, right? You can go inside the aircraft, and then you can go to the config one. I'm going to use my nice MCDU, also from the same vendor, right? WinSim / WinCTRL. I press config, and then you can go to the controls option. Inside the controls option, you've got multiple options. You can configure the thrust levers, but you can also do other stuff, if I'm correct. Does not always work, as you can see, but you can also configure the flaps, etc. Right? I'm not going to do it right now. Let me push the right button. Side stick rudder, you can configure the flaps, and everything can be calibrated. You can see the calibrate button over there, and that's how you do it. For the throttle itself, you can clear the calibration if there's no calibration exists, or if there's a calibration which already exists, I should say. Or else you can simply use the calibrate option and then go to all the positions. Now there's one thing which you need to keep in mind, and that's also was causing a lot of issues at my end, is that if it's in idle, it should be at that 3.77% roughly, right? Because if you configure it incorrectly with the incorrect option over here, with the double stroke, double shaft, what will happen is that if you go in reverse mode, it will be again 100%. So if you hit that issue, then make sure that this one has been set to single stroke, double shaft, and that will resolve your issue. I would say pretty sure. Once you did the calibration, you can of course test it, right, using this method. And as mentioned in the previous part of this video, I also do recommend you to set up the calibration using this part. So you can do the calibration, it's per aircraft. So you click start calibration, then you go down, you see the Fenix is there, you can see Flight Simulator is there, you hit start calibration, you move the joystick into the position, you check it over here in Flight Simulator, it's good, then hit click next, then you go to rev idle, still good, you hit next, then move it to idle, do the same thing, it's still good, move it to CL, goes a little bit harder, that's also good, move it to FLX MCT, also good, and then you move it finally to takeoff and go around, also good. And if you now look at the calibration record, you will see the calibration record is there, and you can see it's effective, which means it's active. Same thing is applicable for the speed brake, which you can find over here, as well as the flaps. You can do that same calibration if you want. It's not required, but I would say I would recommend to do it. And with this, we're at the end of this video where we looked at the calibration of this nice joystick. So if you're having issues, check the settings which I mentioned in the video, and I hope to see you back next time. If you're hitting an issue, feel free to reach out by leaving a comment in the comment box below this video, and let's see if I can help you. Thanks again, and until next time.